Hey folks, in this interview, I'm sitting down with my friend, Mr. Evgeny Tchebotarev. He is the Chief Growth Officer at a little company called Skylum. This is TWIP. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today, I'm sitting down with my buddy, Mr. Evgeny Tchebotarev. He is, like I said in the quick tease there, he's the Chief I want to say Revenue Officer, the Chief Growth Officer, which I would assume has something to do with revenue, at Skylum. And the story about this interview is interesting because Evgeny and I connected again, and I've known Evgeny for years and years, but we were chatting back and forth on LinkedIn, and he suggested that he come on the podcast and we should do shots. Or did I suggest it, Evgeny? Who suggested the shots, the vodka shots on LinkedIn?
That was me.
That was you, right? All right, so we got to stay true to our word, right? So you have your shot, your bottle ready?
I do.
All right, and I have mine here. Let's see if I get that on camera there.
It's been tasted a little bit, so it's open, but it's all real stuff.
Yeah. All right. So we'll have to pour these together. Let's see. You got some in there? All right. Here's mine. I'm gonna pour it in there on camera. This is a TWIP first, by the way.
Yeah. So you're doing shots, and I'm doing like a long drink kind of thing, you know?
Well, because you're probably you're younger than I am, for one.
I don't have shot glasses. That's my answer.
There you go. I have shot glasses, but I poured a healthy little, amount of shot there. All right, you ready? Oh, you got your ice in there and everything. Cheers. All right. All right, this will be an interesting interview now for sure.
That's not going to be the last one.
No, that's not going to be the last one. That's smooth. I've never done a shot with Kettle One before. That's not bad. All right, now we have an interview. What are you drinking there? What is that? What's the name of that?
It's the Lichna. I'm actually not a big, not the biggest fan, but it's been around for a while. Like it's sitting in my closet in the drawers. So it just, and it looks kind of decent. It looks very Russian.
It does look Russian, yeah. Kettle One does not look Russian to me. Does this look Russian? Like, wait, hold on. Does that look Russian to you?
No, it does not.
No, that looks like from like somewhere in the South or something here.
Sure, yeah.
Well, cool. All right, well, we did that. So that's the first but not the last shot that we'll do during this interview, hopefully. Maybe we'll do one more towards the end. But let's kick this thing off before I lose all my brain cells. What does Chief Growth Officer mean exactly at a company like Skylum?
Well, Chief Growth Officer is kind of like a loaded term. It's fairly recently created in the industry itself, so maybe around 10 years old, maybe less. And at Skylum, what I'm doing is a lot of things responsible for outsized growth opportunities. And what I mean by this might be partnerships with different companies. Those might be different activities we do with ambassadors or affiliates. It might be different things related to not only partnerships but integrations with different companies. Mm-hmm. We did one, the latest one we've done a few months ago was with Vodka. We have a global partnership with Fujifilm. So things like this. Sometimes it's related to business opportunities. Sometimes it's related to more specific kind of like day-to-day opportunities, mm-hmm. such as working with affiliates, working with ambassadors, working with creators like you, and a few other kind of like pathways. Yeah. It sometimes can be used, you can use the term like a hitman for hire, so to say.
Nice. So yeah.
Whenever there is, and my Russian accent would be like more prominent the more I drink.
We'll see about that. We'll see as you slide into it. I love it.
It's just kind of like anything that can give us the edge in the market. That would be probably on me to get started, to get that rolling. And back in the first days when I started as Chief Growth Officer, we started by starting basically our ambassador program and went from having like one active ambassador to having more than 80 ambassadors.
Nice.
So now it's like spans 5 continents, I think, at least 5.
Yeah.
And has photographers of all styles, of different, like all the different nationalities and stuff like that. So that's an important aspect, because we wanted to make sure that we are communicating with community, that we're getting feedback from those people, and that we can react faster to trends and changes in the industry as well.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, trends and changes in the industry, it is March 23rd, 2020, as we record this, which means, as most people know, we're in the middle of this whole global pandemic with COVID-19, the coronavirus. The companies that seem most affected by this, I know every company is affected by it, but the most affected are ones in the service industry that rely on person-to-person contact, i.e. airlines and, anything where people gather. A number of conferences have been, or all of them have been canceled, et cetera. How does that, as the chief growth officer for Skylum, are you seeing any impact, either positively or negatively, from the whole COVID thing and people being forced to stay home, et cetera?
Right. Well, speaking of very topical things, that's very actual to me is, there's lack of toilet paper.
Yes.
So I've been trying to hunt a roll or 2 of toilet paper for the last 9 days.
Oh, geez. Wow. Seriously? Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Yeah, there's something going on with Canadians and toilet paper.
And you're in Canada right now. You're what city are you in Canada?
In Toronto.
Toronto. Okay.
But in all seriousness, it definitely affects all the retail businesses. It's currently, a lot of them are closed. We are seeing that people are just like not going out as actively to take photos. They're of course not traveling around the world. They cannot get on the flights, and probably not too many people want to do this now.
Yeah.
It also means that businesses that had, let's say, like shaky foundations, such as traditional camera sales that been slowing down or like been basically dropping in sales for the last few years, are actually I don't know who would go and buy a camera. I think we will see in the next few months how it affects the retail business for camera sales, for example.
Yep.
So I think it's serious, and it changes a lot how we interact with the world. So on the positive side, of course, we see a lot more telecommunication tools. Anything that helps us connect with each other, like Zoom, and people been seeing more active like Slack communication or WhatsApp or like any kind of messenger, right? Really, or like entertainment. So that's an important to notice, and that's important to see. That it's possible that when the pandemic will be over. We had a lot of pandemics. Like, this is not the first one.
It won't be the last. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like I finished a couple of books on pandemics, and we had like 50 or 60 in the last 100 years. So it's just, it will pass. Hopefully that's the last recording that we have.
Exactly.
But it also means that the world emerges completely different because it's the biggest global cooperation that happened in a while. And so I think, how we do and how we react right now as businesses or as individuals, like, do we put our skills? Do we try to level up what we do? Do we try to learn something new? Or do we just become, like passive and, like sad?
Yeah.
It's kind of like up to us. So I think it's important to stay curious and stay positive, and try to see kind of like what are the business or what are the world needs as of today, and what it might need next month or next year.
Yeah, and not to make this whole conversation about Corona or pandemics, but the silver lining, I think, or one of the silver linings in this, is it is forcing from my perspective at least, it's forcing the world to embrace these things that I think in many ways should have been embraced before, like a lot of this distance learning stuff, in telecommuting, working from home if you don't absolutely need to be in the office, things like that. Even things like, I ordered some new eyeglasses and normally you have to go pick them up. I get an email saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to come pick those glasses up now. We're going to ship them directly to you. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, that's the way it should have been. So I think in a lot of ways, we're going to see this sort of change the way or push forward the things that should have been in place already. Of course, tons of negatives and all the tragedies notwithstanding, but the silver lining in all this, I think it's forcing our hand towards more digital, which is going to open up other business opportunities, I think, right?
That's right, yeah. And those are very nice eyeglasses.
You like these? Yeah. Hey, Oakley. See that right there?
Oakley. Oh. You just ordered them online on Oakley?
No. I ordered them. I actually went into the store. In California here. There's this HMO chain called Kaiser Permanente, and they have their optical outlets. So I went in there, did the eye test, and picked these glasses. These glasses are the best glasses I've ever owned. Like literally, like they fit me. I feel like they fit the way that I look and think. So. Yeah, I'm happy. I like them, Oakley. So if you want them, go check them out. Look at that. And these are those what do you call it? The photo grade ones that get dark when you go outside. Nice. And they're bifocals, so they're clear up here, and there's prescription down below. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm an old guy, so. So let's talk about education. So. At Skylum, and I, having talked with Al, do we have to do another one? Okay, here we go.
Just a little, keep the conversation going,
We got social distancing. This is social lubricant right here. All right, I'm doing just a little right there.
This is how Soviet spies used to get all the secrets.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. Cheers. Clink. All right. Okay, so speaking of education. On the Skylum side, and I know, the full transparency, I'm chatting with you guys about working with you and helping out with some educational type projects. But from your perspective as a chief growth officer, what does that look like? Like the current state of the union at Skylum with regard to the educational research and where you'd like to go in terms of education. What's that picture look like?
The state of the union is getting stronger.
Yeah, there you go. Growth, right? Growth.
Never been better. Anyway, so education is super critical, I think. What I mean by that is you're right that most people should have embraced distant learning a long time ago. It should have been a thing where lynda.com or all the other, Creative Live, there's so many different tools that people can use. There's so many resources that's being put out there in the last 5 or 7 years that will probably see a massive surge in usage. And I think it's currently doing them justice because for many, I think the feeling was Harvard would put all their lectures online and people wouldn't watch them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is it possible when one of the best universities in the world giving away its lectures for free and you're too lazy to, just put it on YouTube and watch it? This is crazy.
Yeah.
But that was the reality. So I think now that every learning available is going to be distance learning, I think people will have a better appreciation that there is a good quality and a great quality in terms of learning, in terms of instructors, in terms of how it's positioned, how the basically how it's all put together. And everyone, companies that started a while ago, will probably have an edge there. So that's I think that's pretty obvious conclusion to that. So kind of we at Skylum, we do want to invest in education. We are working on a project to try to, put it online in the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So probably by early April. It's currently in the works. We started early with small things. There is a coffee break on our Facebook channel, for example, where you can participate and learn new things, ask questions. We're editing photos online and live with the audience, so audience can participate like as we go.
That's cool.
I think that's making it more accessible, making it fun, making it like a experience with a friend. Like somebody helping you out. That's the idea with this. And there's a lot of other different segments and tools that we want to implement so that it helps photographers, first of all, not feel alone.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking for myself, like I'm stuck in the apartment by myself.
Solitary confinement there in Toronto, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so for many people who are in the similar situations, for people who might need an extra boost of motivation, community, I think we are able to provide that. I think people that are part of Skylum network are very creative. They love using some AI tools that we have, like augmented skies or adding giraffes to photos. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those are, you have to be pretty creative to do that, to be okay with and not be like a snob with like, oh no, you can never do this sky replacement kind of stuff.
Yeah.
More open-minded, and I think we can create some fun content for them, engage them in this, and just see how it goes. Just have fun while doing this. If it helps the business, great. If it's not, we'll see how long it's going to last. I mean, as you mentioned, growth officer also means in part, at least in part, revenue.
Yeah, exactly. There's some money in there somewhere.
Yeah, so one has to follow the other. But yeah, we'll see. If we do it fun, if we make it fun first, then the rest will follow.
Yeah, it's interesting. You say you mentioned the sort of sky replacement and the addition of giraffes and hot air balloons and stuff like that, and having that ability to do that seamlessly. And and I specifically asked Renee Robin. You may know Renee Robin. She's a high-end retoucher, and she, knows her way around a pixel or two. And she joined the last Friday's TWIP member mixer. We do this mixer on Zoom every Friday at 6 p.m. where people can come in and just hang out and, talk about photography. She joined, and I asked her specifically what she thought about Luminar and the sky replacement AI features in there from a professional retoucher standpoint. And I got an answer that I didn't think I'd get. I thought she would say, you know what? Only people that don't know what the heck they're doing are going to use tools that do it all for them. Real retouchers will, use clipping paths and all this stuff to do their retouching. And she said the opposite. She said she will embrace whatever makes her job easier. And looking at Luminar and what it's doing with the sky replacement, it looks like that would save hours of work on what she would normally do, to replace the sky. So she embraces those technologies. And I think once people get to that level and they start understanding that it's not necessarily cheating to let the computer do what it's designed to do, and that is help you execute your vision, then, it's just, you remove resistance in the path from where you are to realizing your vision. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, I remember in the early days of, of like car racing, stuff like this, when racers had to get on the field and get in the cars. Very early days, like early 20th century, they had this thing when they have to put like a thing in front of the motor and then like crank it manually to start it. I don't think anybody want to do that in Uber or Lyft that they're getting. Be like, hey, we stopped for a second. Now we have to crank it over again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's technology, right?
Yeah, technology moves on. And so AI sky replacement will make it easier, or already making it easier for many people. I think the problem is that some people might use it to achieve over-the-top results, and the old industry or the people who are used to like old school kind of like manual process might think it's an overkill.
Yeah.
But then you look at even at the negatives from Cartier-Bresson or a whole bunch of other photographers, they did so much editing. Like it's not even them who were doing it, it's their print masters who were doing all this editing for them, changing skies and making like all these drastic adjustments. And so how is that different, right? It's just easier for more people. It's just before it would be hard because I wouldn't have a print master. I'm not that famous. Well, not yet, I guess.
Not yet.
At least I don't have a print master. That's the thing. And I don't need one because now I can use Luminar for those fun things and just use it to where it needs to be added. I'm not going to be adding this on every single photo. It's just not the purpose of that.
Yeah.
But if it's gray overcast like it is today in Toronto, well, I don't think anymore that I cannot go out and take pictures. Now it's actually, for me, it's like, oh, I know what I can do.
Yeah.
I'm actually being more proactive photographer because of that.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about that and go down that path. So the idea of there's two camps, and I think there'll always be two camps in photography, where there's the camp of people that enjoy taking the photographer and getting it right in camera and, doing minimal tweaks later, even cropping. You shouldn't even have to crop later. You should see the shot in the frame and get it. And then there's the other people that I fall into the category of that look at the shots that you're taking as components to a final execution of whatever you're building. They're building blocks, or like Ansel Adams said, it's the score, and you as the photographer are the performer that's performing the notes. Like how do you feel about that? Like, I know obviously you work at Skylum, so you're going to fall in the second category, but how do you feel about the people that are purists, quote purists, that say that, if you don't shoot in manual and you don't get it right in the camera and you don't nail the exposure like you're shooting slide film, then you're not a real photographer?
Well, do what makes you happy.
Exactly. That's like the 60s, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. I knew one very amazing fashion photographer. And that photographer had no idea how the settings work, had no idea how the camera worked. And so that photographer, not going to name, or even try for you to try to guess, but that photographer had an assistant that would set everything. And so that photographer would just go and take the shot.
Yeah, you go in and press the button. Yeah, Annie Leibovitz was like that, right? Or is like that, where, you got a crew around you. They go in, get everything set up, and you go in and, your star power is part of the gig. You show up and click, not to diminish anything Annie Leibovitz does. Obviously, she's amazing. But, at the same time, she has an entourage of people that help her get stuff done. And she goes in and she's not setting up lights for the most part and doing all that grunt work. There are people that help her out with that.
Yeah. And everyone is professional. Like, you cannot claim to make a movie. There are so many people involved in making a movie, hundreds of people. And so easy to make mistakes and make a terrible movie. Like there's a recent movie, Cats.
Which I haven't seen yet.
That might be a great example. I haven't watched it. I only need to see it on comedy shows and realize that that's all I need to know about this movie. But there's movies like that, where it's a work of many people. And so is photography. Like, if you're taking a landscape photo, well, sure, you can do it by yourself. You also need a bit of nature to cooperate, so you have to be patient. But if you're dealing with anything to do with other people, like architecture photography, well, somebody put this together, like brick by brick, and they had to make it look nice. And there's an architect, and there is a client, and so many other things. Or if it's a portrait, then it's, of course, the other person, how you communicate with that person. So it's almost never like a single person's work. And if somebody is single-mindedly want to do the project by themselves, well, so be it. They are. It might be their style. but I think it's a minority overall. I think a lot more people in photography are interacting with the world that was made by other people or by nature in that case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's everything's changing. Like I said, some things are changing for the better. Some things are, not necessarily positive.
Just to remind the purists that the camera doesn't see color. It sees in grayscale, so your photos are not even that pure anymore.
That's right. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a photographer while I was working at Adobe. I think it was like 10 years ago. And we were talking about this topic and purist versus digital manipulation. I think one of the evangelists from Adobe was there, Russell Brown. He was there. And I think it was Steven Johnson was a photographer. But we were talking about, Steven was on the side of the coin that said, he's a purist, and if you don't shoot and get it right in camera, of course we should all be shooting to get it right in camera, but if you don't get it right in camera, then that's, you should be always aiming for that. And Russell was on the side of digital manipulation, and all pixels were born to be punished. Do whatever the hell you want if it leads to the final result that you want. Yeah. I think the end of that is, like you said, Ev, it's like whatever makes you happy. Right, whatever floats your boat. If you like flogging yourself, then do it.
I'm glad we agree on that.
All right. Wait. You gotta wait for me. Wait.
Hold on. Then I'm gonna refuel. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you gotta refuel. Refuel the tank. And I'm cheating, by the way, because I'm putting less and less. Focus on this. Less and less in the glass right there.
Yeah, mine is getting a bit fuzzy with the ice.
You're from the region that makes this stuff, so.
Yeah, that's the only thing to survive.
Disinfectant. You're making me drink my disinfectant, man. Come on.
It disinfects the inside too.
There you go. Inside out. Well, before we pass out, and let's start wrapping this up. What's on the horizon for you and for Skylum and for growth for the company? What would you like? Where would you like the company be from a growth perspective? And let's say we're in 2020 now, and say 2021, 2022.
Well, that's a very loaded question, actually. There is a clear understanding where the company stands now.
Yeah.
We are all behind Luminar, so that's a flagship product. There's a lot of work. More than half of the company are engineers, so it's very heavy on the technical side, and it requires a lot of it's been a bit of a kind of like a pretty difficult path. I started with Luminar 2018. I started with Luminar when I joined the company, so that's one of the things that happened for me, that I had to start with the company, then start seeing the potential of the product. Mm-hmm. After talking with my boss and stuff like that, with Alex, that was on your show before that.
Yeah.
That's how I sneaked into this show, is to promise to drink. in real
Next
time.
time Alex comes on, he's drinking vodka. Just say it. That's it.
Well, he has to drink double then. Now everybody starts at the previous guest level.
Exactly. It's a tradition now. We got to make it happen.
Right. And so for the future, a lot of the technologies that's going to be developed are going to be AI centric. So any tedious tasks, anything that people have been doing for a while by manually, for example, as you might imagine, AI can probably automate. And what we're seeing is that with initial set of technologies, take the portrait tools in Luminar, initial release that we got probably worked for 80 or 90% of photos. And that's totally fine. Our goal is to push it forward. Our goal is to make it as best as possible, but also we're not going to wait until it's 99% perfect.
Yeah.
What's happening is that a few months later, we followed up with 4.2 release, and now it recognizes a lot more faces, with half face closed, with hands in front of face, with different, whether the face is to the side, whether the face is at angle, whether it's a very tiny face as a overall picture. So now it works with like 95, maybe 97% of all photos. And we're not stopping there. Like we're getting the edge cases and improving that. And so eventually, by the time others will realize, it will work in like 99% of the cases. It might take another 6 months. It might take another 12 months. I'm not sure. But what's going to happen is that it will become the norm. Like when you look at the tools, and it's not like it's not named for robots. It's not named like unsharp mask or frequency separation. Like, how am I supposed to know what frequency separation is? Yeah. So instead of this, it's going to be called, hey, just want to make, like face light, or I want to make, improve the eyebrows, or I want to make the, like raccoon eyes disappear. And so that will become the norm. Like nobody needs to do the masking, nobody needs to do the like selection or cleaning or all these weird things that we just did because that was the way to do.
But is that the future, though? Is that? Do you see that? And I agree with that. I agree that abstracting all that complexity and technical crap out of the way to make realizing what your vision is, that's the way to go, obviously, and making it more approachable to more people versus just people who understand frequency separation and unsharp mask and paths and all this stuff. Let's make it more accessible, powerful, but yet more accessible to many more people. But how do you see that splitting out in the future from a professional standpoint and a consumer, or even an advanced amateur standpoint? Do you see like professionals still building 35 layers in Photoshop with different layers for different things? Or do you see those professionals moving over to a tool like Luminar and still getting what they want done, but being able to have more fun with it? What's the end game there?
Well, a lot of photographers have been forced to do the tools that are available for them, because if not for the the industry standards, there's nothing else. Like there's nowhere to go. And so what I see this is that it empowers a lot more people to take photography, not necessarily photography, but just like creation of images. And that's why we have giraffes in the latest update. That's why we have like moon and other objects, because not everybody needs a realistic result. Not everybody wants a realistic result. Somebody might be making an image for their album for their new Twitch channel.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're all in online world. Like I was thinking about the CD, and I realized that nobody's making CDs anymore. But like for their Spotify, right? Like doesn't matter what it is. If somebody's a musician, they will not go and learn Photoshop just to put a moon in like an image of their choice. Yeah. They'll take an image from a free photo stock. They'll download it. They'll just change the sky from like day to night, and they'll put a moon, and they're like, oh, this is exactly what I want. Why do we have to force to teach them like hours and hours to learn the program just to make this happen when they're not actually in the business of making those images? And I think it's just gonna release so much potential in people, because it's just I personally want a lot more creative concepts to appear, and a lot more creative concepts are dying because people cannot edit them properly. It's a great concept, but it's not fully transformed because the tools are too complex.
Yeah.
Like somebody might take an amazingly creative shot with the phone or with an entry-level camera, and they may not have the power to like do the frequency separation for their portrait, for example. And so, but the concept is amazing. Like I see so many teenagers or early 20s, like people who are super creative. I'm like already a very old man compared to those folks. And I love the stuff that they're doing. And they're not going to be like, they're already like past this generation of like learning all this stuff, because they just want to go out and create. For them, there's no much difference between video and audio or like video, photo, audio, like all of these mediums are combined together. It doesn't really matter, like live stream or a podcast, like all of these things are so interchangeable. And so we just want to help them like complete those projects, complete those visions that they have, and share it with the world. So it's kind of funny because like a lot, of course, a lot of older generation are, they're like, hey, we always done it this way.
Right. This is the way it's always been done. So, anything else, anything different is cheating or not pure.
Exactly. But like photography has been changing, for the last, 160, 170 years. And nobody would want to go, except really weird few people, to the photography of 150, 160 years ago. So they're just advocating to go back where their prime time was. I've been a prime time digital photographer. Well, you started in 2000s, so of course you're in digital. But then people who are older, they're like, well, film is not dead. So kind of like everybody's trying to say that their years when they were in their prime, then when they did their best work, are the best. But digital artists of today are going to be doing the same when new holograms or whatever comes along in years, and they'll be like, well, remember Luminar, that was the real photography, that was for purists, and now you guys with holograms and 4D interdimensional, whatever is completely, too new for us.
Yeah, that's cheating. Yeah, doing this 4D interdimensional imaging, that's not real photography. The real photography was you remember way back when in 2020, we were using Luminar. That was the real stuff. Right?
Yeah, that was for purists and not for. So it's always going to go. The conversation is endless. I think you can have unlimited number of guests on the show, and it's going to sound exactly the same. You will interview younger folks; they'll tell you one thing. You'll interview older folks; they'll tell you the same thing, but for their generation. We know that we need to move forward. We know that we have the power to harness AI. And it's not the creepy AI that some companies do. It's actually like very simple, very visible, very positive and emotional AI, so to say. Yeah. Like, editing skin or making people look better. Hey, it's like, not sharing any information to, pinging the base home and stuff like that. It's just making stuff better for most people. Yeah. If I print a photo of myself, which I probably will never do, I want it to look slightly better than I look in real life,
Yeah.
I think it's safe for everybody else except you, Frederick, because you're perfect.
Well, it's, I'm an Android boy, so. No, it's interesting. It's the whole thing about this field that we're in. Both from a software side, from a camera side, from an artistic side, it's all subjective. It's 100% subjective. There are no right answers. There are no wrong answers. And like you said, it was very prophetic what you said about, hey, whatever makes you happy. If you like the process of, let's say, building a ship in a bottle, every day after work, and you like how hard it is and how meticulous it is and time consuming, and that provides you with some sort of catharsis, then by all means do that. If you like shooting on manual because it challenges you and you like thinking about the light that's entering the camera, and you want to just sort of obsess about that, or if you're the photographer that doesn't care about any of that and instead wants to realize this vision that you have in your head by the path of least resistance to get there, then that's right too. So there's no right answer in any of this. And anybody that tells you differently is full of it, right? Because it's all art in the end.
For sure.
Yeah. So cool. So if people want to connect with you, Evgeny, and because you're a photographer in your own right, you travel the world, you're shooting amazing shots all over the place all the time. What's the best way to reach out and connect with you and maybe dialogue with you?
Oh, that's a good question because it's changing. I think FireandPX would still be a great way. Mm-hmm. It's fireandpx.com/my last name, Tchebotarev, Tchebotarev.
That's easy. That's easy.
That's easy. I made sure that nobody else takes that.
Well, before we continue, thank you for the reminder. Before we continue, so people that have been following This Week in Photo for a while may know that you've been on the show a number of times. You've been I think the first time you were on the show, correct me if I'm wrong, was you were and still are the co-founder of 500px. So you helped build the company, helped launch the company. You guys had offices in San Francisco and other places around the world, and then you sort of divested of that world. There's been some questions about 500px and where the company is now. Should people put their images there, etc.? Give us the real deal. Now that you're out of 500px and with Skylum and driving the wagon over there, what's the deal with 500px? Should people be going over there? Are you happy with them, or what's the diagnosis of 500px?
Well, that's basically $1 million question, right?
Yes, literally, right?
Literally, yeah. 500px is still a great place to have your images on it. It has the audience. It has the people scouting for images. So for professionals, like if anyone wants to advance their career, I think 500px is essential to post their photos. I think, of course, for many others, Instagram took by a long shot. I mean, like by now, it's probably everyone has an Instagram account. And so 500px becomes a place, or still, is a place where you would put your best works. You would, put the works that you would be okay to share with an audience, like in a nice evening, kind of like, if you're dressing up and you're like, hey, this is my photos, that would be a nice place, like a gallery setting kind of stuff. In terms of kind of like things that 500px did or didn't do, of course, I have a lot of my own thoughts as to how the company should have developed. Like one of those, I was very sad when there was actually both things after my time at 500px. Classes got started and canceled at 500px, I think around 2016 or 2017, and now would be like a perfect time for that. With the virus and crisis, and just like in general, I think, frankly, we have 7.7 billion people on the planet. And nobody wants to be less smart or know less tomorrow than they know today. So education is critical for photographers. It's critical for everyone. And so having classes, having some sort of like learning environment, and engaging community even a lot more, using the same photographers, the same community to educate others. I think that was a big missed opportunity, in my personal opinion, for example. But yeah, I still use it from time to time. I don't get as much sales as I used to in the past. I don't upload as much as I used to in the past. I still do from time to time. I stopped uploading to my Instagram actually a lot as well. Yeah. And partially that's because when I was in Japan back in January, my camera broke.
Oh.
And I left my camera for repair in Tokyo, knowing that I'll be back in a few weeks. And I haven't been back since. Uh-oh. And it's now stuck in repairs, and the repair center is closed because of the virus. Oh. And so I have no camera.
Oh, just your phone, right?
Yeah. So my story is a bit different, but partially that I don't upload is because I don't have a camera. So it's a perfect time to dive deep in Luminar and get some old shots and re-edit those.
Yeah. No. Wow. Sorry to hear that. I recently purchased this guy. Look at that. Wait. I just got it last week.
Lumix S1. That's the fancy full frame one?
Yeah, baby.
All right.
That's the full. So I'm joining the world. You know me as the Micro Four Thirds guy. So now I'm joining the world of full frame, or I have joined the world of full frame. So we'll see how that goes. So, great. All right, we got to wrap this up. But before we do that, we got to do one more.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Are you ready? You ready for this?
Well, I need to refill to make sure. Are you blurry? Okay.
Well, no, I wasn't. Now that's the alcohol right there. See, that's you right there.
Let's make it a great tradition to start and end shows like this.
Cheers.
Oh, it's hitting. All right.
That's it. This day's over. There's no more online for me today. Everything is offline. Well, cool. Evgeny Tchebotarev, man. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you. You got to come on more and more in the future. Congratulations on all you're doing as the chief growth officer at Skylum. Growth has been, based on what Alex told me and what you told me offline, growth has been sort of, as you want to see, up and to the right? So it's, it's growing over there. So that's where you want to be. The last question I want to throw at you before we end this is, what keeps you up at night in terms of business? Obviously the virus keeps us all up at night, but but in terms of like the overall business of Skylum, like what competitor keeps you up at night? What is the what's the one thing that you're worried about?
Oh my. Well, definitely, like as you mentioned, virus. It's like I'm not getting any good sleep for the last like 2 weeks or so. Yeah,
vodka will help. Vodka helps.
And that's partially because of my travel, because I've been to all the zones that got hit early, like China, living in Taiwan, living in Japan. So that kind of like hit pretty close for me. And in terms of business, the key for us is just have great partners. That's part of my job. It is to convince companies that they can benefit immensely by working with Skylum, working with Luminar. I think what we have going for us is that we're super flexible. We're a small-ish team, but we can make decisions pretty fast. We can move fast. And so now is the time. What I'm trying to affect is that big companies need to move fast too. The world is changing, and a lot of companies are moving like nothing has happened. And they might not emerge from that. So kind of like for me is as simple as like, what kind of words do I choose? What kind of message do I try to convey to get them on board? Because it's going to be a great benefit for us as a company, of course, but it's going to be also a great benefit to all the members of those companies, to all the consumers that bought that brand or like want to work or like want to communicate or be close with that brand. So that is kind of like a key, and then like making sure that it happens so that the team remembers that this is a high priority, that all the months and weeks that we put together to have those conversations, to get to the right people, to get to the right to get the right mindset, to put the contracts together, that this is not just a trivial thing, that we have responsibility in front of the partner to deliver. And so, that's something that keeps me up at night as well. Yeah.
Well, it keeps you up. That's a good thing, though, right? I mean, from what I know of you, you are ambitious and forward thinking, and you want to build something that wasn't here yesterday, today. So it's those kinds of challenges. I think people like you engage on those to, sort of push it forward. If you didn't have that challenge, you'd be sitting in your apartment on quarantine, sort of going crazy right now, right? But you're not. You have things to think about and important things to build for the rest of us. So,
I can do those in parallel, though. I can still go crazy in my apartment and still do things. Yeah.
Hey, you got the internet. You probably have an Xbox or a PlayStation in there. You're good. You're good for at least another month or so, and then you'll go crazy. So. Yeah. All right, Evgeny Tchebotarev, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers, man. Take care. This is Twitter.